Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Millionaire humiliates and drives out his son's fiancée because she was a beggar. New York, Upper East Side, a winter evening. The vast Sterling mansion, illuminated by glittering chandeliers, echoes with hushed laughter and sophisticated conversation. In the grand hall, Richard Sterling, a respected but authoritarian billionaire, welcomes guests to the dinner introducing his son's new fiancée, Emily Carter. Emily, dressed in a modest but elegant dress, clutches her bag shyly to her chest. She grew up in poverty, lost her parents at a young age, and survived by begging on the streets of Manhattan. She never imagined she would find herself facing such a crowd. She smiles shyly at Nathan Sterling, her fiancé, who tries to reassure her. Everything goes well until Richard, curious about her past, starts a conversation. Emily hesitates, blushing, then confesses the truth: she grew up in poverty and worked as a beggar to survive. Silence falls in the room. Richard's eyes fill with anger. How can you think that a girl who begs can be worthy of my son?" he exclaimed, his voice echoing in the room. He suddenly stood up, inadvertently knocked over a chair, and pointed at Emily. The guests looked away, some shocked, others amused. Emily felt her cheeks burn, humiliated in front of everyone. Nathan tries to intervene. "Father, please." But Richard interrupts him. "No, Nathan. Your future deserves better than a beggar." Without another word, Richard gestured for Emily to leave. Trembling, tears welling in her eyes, she left the mansion as the icy Manhattan wind hit her full force. Behind her, the stifled laughter of some of the guests echoed like a cruel reminder of her shame. Alone in the night, Emily clutches her bag to her chest and whispers, one day, you will regret what you have done." The next day, his life would take a turn that no one, not even Richard Sterling, could have foreseen. The streets of Manhattan were cold and cruel that night. Emily Carter walked aimlessly, her heart heavy and tears frozen on her cheeks. Each step seemed to plunge her deeper into the humiliation she had suffered the previous day at the Sterling mansion. The luxurious shop windows, with their glittering decorations, brutally reminded her of her own poverty. How could she, a mere beggar, hope to exist in this world of wealth and privilege? After wandering for hours, she finally sat down on a bench in a deserted park. Snow was falling gently, covering the city with an almost magical white blanket, but Emily no longer had the strength to be amazed. She clutched her bag to her chest and wondered if she would ever regain her dignity. It was then that a man approached. Tall, elegant but not ostentatious, he wore a dark coat and his brown eyes reflected a benevolent curiosity. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. Emily looked up in surprise. Who are you?" "My name is Marcus Thompson," he replied with a slight smile. "I'm not one of your enemies. I believe you have potential, even if life has been unfair to you." Emily looked at him incredulously. A stranger had just told her she had potential, even though she had just been rejected by the most influential family in New York. Marcus sat down next to her and took out a small envelope. "Take this. It's temporary accommodation and a little money to get you back on your feet. But I don't want anything from you in return, except that you never lose your dignity." Emily felt an unfamiliar warmth fill her heart. Someone believed in her when everyone else had scorned her. Her tears began to flow again, but this time it wasn't just sadness, it was the beginning of hope. Marcus offered him a temporary job in his small company, which invested in innovative projects in New York. "You'll learn, you'll work hard, and if you want, one day you could become someone powerful." Emily, the humiliated beggar, sat up on the bench. A mixture of fear and determination in her eyes, she whispered, "I won't let you down." And so began her transformation. The young woman rejected by a millionaire set out on the path to a future where she would never again depend on the pity of the rich, but on her own strength and intelligence. Months passed, and Emily Carter changed dramatically. Under Marcus Thompson's watchful guidance, she discovered a world she never could have imagined. Each morning began with lessons in finance, management, and negotiation. Marcus wasn't just a mentor, he was a patient yet demanding teacher, able to detect Emily's hidden potential and help it blossom. Emily learned quickly. She had an innate business sense and unwavering determination. Every success, however small, boosted her confidence. She went from a humiliated beggar to an elegant, self-assured young woman, capable of standing up to the most powerful. The modest clothes she wore at first were replaced by outfits befitting an ambitious businesswoman, and her eyes, once filled with fear and shame, now shone with intelligence and resolve. Meanwhile, Emily began building her own network. Marcus encouraged her to meet investors, attend conferences, and develop her personal brand. Each interaction taught her something new, and each small victory fueled her desire to rise up against those who had scorned her. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, Nathan Sterling lived in regret. He thought constantly of Emily and blamed himself for not having defended his love against his father's pride. But Richard Sterling, unyielding, persisted in considering her unworthy of his son, unable to see the potential and inner strength of the young woman he had humiliated. Emily, for her part, wasn't yet openly seeking revenge. Her priority was her own transformation. She wanted her success to be undeniable, her worth recognized first and foremost by herself. But deep down, an idea was slowly taking root. One day, Richard and Nathan wouldn't be able to ignore what she had become. One evening, as she was finalizing her first major project, Emily looked out of Marcus's office window and murmured to herself, "One day, they will remember my name. And on that day, I will decide how to show them what a woman who refuses to bend is truly worth." This was the beginning of Emily Carter, no longer the humiliated beggar, but the future woman who would transform her pain into power. A year had passed since Emily Carter's humiliation. Manhattan shone under the winter lights, and the windows of the luxury boutique seemed to smile at her with subtle irony. But Emily was no longer the timid young beggar girl Richard Sterling had thrown out. Her posture, her gaze, and even the way she walked reflected the power and confidence of a woman who had transformed her life. Accompanied by Marcus Thompson, now her partner and mentor, Emily was heading to a prestigious gala at one of the city's most luxurious hotels. The event brought together high society and the business elite, and Emily knew that Richard Sterling and his son Nathan would be there. When she entered the room, a murmur rippled through the assembly. Richard's eyes instantly widened at the sight of her. The humiliated beggar girl of a year earlier now stood before him, radiant, self-assured, with an aura that no amount of wealth could buy. Nathan, sitting at a table with his friends, jumped up abruptly. "Emily, is that you?" he whispered, both shocked and amazed. Richard remained frozen, unable to utter a word. Their eyes met, and for the first time, he felt the weight of his past arrogance. The young woman he had scorned and banished had become a force he could not ignore. Emily didn't smile. She had learned patience and strategy. "Good evening, Nathan's father," she said calmly, her voice ringing with assurance. "I hope you had a good year." Her simple but chilling words made Richard tremble inside. During the evening, Emily demonstrated her success. Her projects had been acclaimed by investors, her presence was sought after by the media, and her reputation was beginning to spread throughout the city. Marcus, proud, watched in silence as Emily gradually regained control of her destiny. Nathan, unable to hide his feelings, approached her. "Emily. I'm sorry for what my father did. You're amazing." Emily smiled gently at him, but deep down, she knew that true power came from her own transformation, not from Nathan's or Richard's approval. The evening ended with palpable tension. Richard, humiliated in his own world of wealth, understood that he had underestimated Emily Carter, and that his arrogance had cost him more than he had thought. This encounter was only the beginning. Emily, triumphant but calculating, knew that a moment would come when she could decide what to do next, silent revenge on the one who had humiliated her. A few weeks after the gala, Emily Carter was now a respected figure in the New York business world. Her projects had been praised by the press, and her influence was growing daily. But the memory of the humiliation inflicted by Richard Sterling had never left her. One evening, Emily was invited to a charity event organized by the Sterlings, a lavish gala where all of Manhattan's elite gathered. Richard had no idea that the young woman he had once chased away would be there. When Emily entered, murmurs rippled through the room. Richard froze, his heart sinking. The woman he had humiliated was no longer the timid young beggar girl, but a commanding and respected woman. Every movement, every calculated smile demonstrated her newfound power. Emily approached Richard calmly. "Good evening, Mr. Sterling." Her voice was gentle, but each word carried an irresistible force. "I suppose you're surprised to see me here." Richard, unable to respond immediately, lowered his eyes. Nathan, beside him, looked at her with admiration and love, aware of the magnitude of the change. During the evening, Emily subtly highlighted her achievements. She introduced new financial partners, made announcements that impressed all the guests, and attracted the attention of the media present. Every gesture showed Richard that he had seriously underestimated the young woman he had rejected. At the end of the event, Emily addressed Nathan with a slight smile. "Nathan, I think we have a lot of catching up to do." Then, turning to Richard, she added gently but firmly. "And you, Mr. Sterling, I hope this evening reminds you that you should never judge someone by their origins, but by their determination and their heart." Richard, silent and contrite, finally understood the lesson. Wealth and power are not enough to judge a person's worth. Emily had not sought open revenge, but her success and dignity spoke for her, humiliating the millionaire in a way that money could never undo. Nathan took Emily's hand. "I never stopped believing in you." Emily, proud and serene, replied. "This time, I'm the one choosing how to move forward." And so, the young woman, once a beggar, had transformed humiliation into strength, proven her worth, and rewritten her destiny. Her revenge was not violent, but it was complete. Emily had gained what money could not buy: respect, dignity, and total control over her life.